We will invite first presenter from Universitas 11 Maret, Bu Tri Mulyaningsih and Bu Fitri Widyaningsih.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, Mbak Vita.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. Hopefully you are fine too.
Okay. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for the organizing committee and moderators. Let me begin this presentation. I would like to share the screen. Okay. So this paper titled Multi-Level Determinants of Childhood Stunting in Indonesia. This is a collaborative work between myself and colleague from Universitas 11 Maret and colleague from Public Health in University of Canberra. This paper is currently under review. We just received the review from the reviewers, and we currently revise the paper accordingly. So these are the background of this research. So the data shows that 30.8% of young Indonesian children are stunted. And stunting is associated with many dimensions of children's, parents, household, and community characteristics. So for example, Mahmudiono, Sumarmi, and Rosenkranz in 2017 shows in the study that stunted is related to poor dietary habits. Semba et al. 2008 shows that stunted is related to lack of access to micronutrition and also immunization. And another study by De Silva, Sumarto 2018, and Skofias 1999, they associated stunting with socioeconomic background. They found that stunting is high within poor families and low-educated parents. Furthermore, a study by Bill et al. 2017, Torlese et al. 2016, Anwar et al. 2010, and Barber and Gatler 2009 shows that lack of access to health services and access to WASH, WASH is stand for clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, they all contribute to higher risk of stunting. This is the data shows the prevalence of malnutrition. It's not only stunting, so there are three indicators. First is stunting, second is overweight, and third is wasting. And then we try to break down the indicator based on total, rural, urban, and poor and non-poor. If you have a look into this chart, it's quite obvious that, for example, stunting is higher in rural and then also within poor families. In regard to overweight, on the other hand, overweight, the prevalence is higher among non-poor groups and also those who live in urban areas. These are more specific into stunting prevalence. So I think I just repeat the graph from the previous slide just to give an emphasis that stunted is very related with where they live and then also the socioeconomic background. So this shows the wasting prevalence. The wasting prevalence is much lower than other malnutrition indicator in Indonesia. However, it's still about 5%, particularly in a poor family. So we will try to compare these three malnutrition indicators, stunting, overweight, and wasting in this slide. And we focus more into stunting because if you have a look into the graph, the prevalence of stunting is much higher than other malnutrition indicators. So the objective of this study is we would like to conduct the hierarchical nature of the data in that children that are nested within household. and household are nested within a sub-district, and sub-district are nested within province. So we kind of assume that there is a contributions of the region, environment, and also household characteristic in regard to stunting risk in Indonesia. And then we also do the partitions of the residual components at each level so that it enables us to see the effect of unobserved province. Here we have sub-district and household level characteristic on stunting. Hopefully, we would like to contribute in the literatures on that we employ the hierarchical model by capturing the characteristic of children, the household, the sub-district, and also province to estimate the risk factors and also predictors of stunting in Indonesia by using household, sub-district, and province clusters. We employ the Indonesian Family Life Survey, IFLS, Wave 4 and Wave 5. And we able to collect about 4,000 for each wave. So in total, we have about 8,000 of young children aged 0 to 5 years old. IFLS a longitudinal survey representing 83% of Indonesian population. And this study focused on young children aged 5 years old and below. And we utilize data from IFLS in terms of anthropometry data of height, dietary habits in the past 1 week, demography data, birth history and clinic and subclinical infection. Also, we rely on household level data and community level data. So this is the hierarchical data structure. So if we able to see is from the bottom to top. So for example, in one household, they have more than 1 kid, a young kids 5 years old and below. So then we group them under one household. And then in one sub-district, there are many households that have children under 5 years old. So then we also have a characteristic of that sub-district that we nested into the province. So then that's how we work with the hierarchical data structure. So in addition to individual characteristic of the children, we also take into account the heterogeneity of household, the heterogeneity of sub-district, and the heterogeneity of the province where the children live. So the multi-level mixed effect regression estimate the odds of stunting by considering the household characteristic and community characteristic of sub-district and province. So in this study, there are 3 hierarchical levels to capture cluster heterogeneity, which are household, sub-district, and province. We name it as a residual components. And then we also allow the estimation of odds of stunting using the lower and higher level of variables and cross-level interaction between individuals and household level data. Further, we employ the logistic function to predict the likelihood of stunting by using several indicators. So these are the outcome variable. We use a Z-score of children weight based on the WHO Child Growth Standard and Ministry of Health guidelines. The score measures the distance of children height with correspondence median of children from the same age. So the children aged 0 to 59 months with height below the WHO Child Growth Standard median by -2, we group as a stunting, and -3, we group them under the chronic or severely stunting. Outcome variable is binary variable consisted of 1 if the children is either stunted and severely stunted, and 0 if the children is normal. So these are the independent variable, explanatory variables. We try to capture individual, household, and community level data. In terms of individual level data, we collect the data on the unhealthy snacking behavior, gender, neonatal weight, and infection. Here we focus on diarrhea. And then we also collect the data on household, such as parental education, mother stature, economic background, and whether they live in rural or urban area, how the access to antenatal care, and then how the access to water, sanitation, and hygiene. On top of that, we also add the community level data on the access to specific nutrition intervention in Puskesmas. So this is a diagnostic check. Before we go further on the multi-level regression, we try to plot the caterpillar plot here. The caterpillar plot shows the residual from around 1,300 sub-district in the sample with 95% confidence interval. The residual shows the departure of the risk of stunting of sub-district from the average or the overall mean. And the graph revealed that for a substantial number of sub-districts, the 95% confidence interval does not overlap with the horizontal line of 0. So this indicates that stunting in this sub-district is significantly above average or below average. So there is a heterogeneity in terms of household, sub-district, and also province. So then it's kind of, you know, a justification for use the multi-level regression. On top of that, we also calculate the interclass correlation coefficient, or ICC, to measure the degree of homogeneity in the risk of stunting within clusters, within household, within sub-district, and within province. A higher ICC indicates a stronger correlation in the risk of stunting within cluster. And then I will show you the table, but from the text here, I would like to describe the ICC of the province level is about 1.13. ICC in the sub-district is higher, 1.13, and ICC in the household level is close to 1.3. So the lower level of environment, it gives more information in terms of risk of stunting. So this indicates that differences between households are more important in explaining the variation in the risk of stunting in Indonesia, even though the variation in sub-district and province, it also plays a role. So this is the tables. Basically, I've also described previously on the ICC. So if you would like to see in the fourth column, this is the figure of the ICC across province, across sub-district, and across household. I move on to another diagnostic check. We use variance partition coefficient, or VPC. It's very similar with ICC. The VPC see the contribution of unobserved cluster characteristic on the risk of stunting at each level in our model. So it's consistent with ICC that VPC province is about 3%. It explains the variance of risk of stunting is attributable to differences between, sorry, this is not school, but between province. And then 9.8% of the variance of risk of stunting is attributable to differences between sub-district, and 16.9% is attributable to differences between household. And between the children itself, the variation able to explain about 70.2%. So this is the main regression. The main regression, we uses the logistic regression, and we would like to maybe just show you some of the important findings. First is about the unhealthy snacking. The variable is more than 1 and statistically significant, meaning that if the children consume unhealthy snacking, they will have a higher risk to be stunted. A male also, they have higher risk to be stunted. The children who have the lower birth weight, a small baby, the odd is very high, is 2.5. If the children experience diarrhea in the past 1 month, they also have higher odds to be stunted, is 1.2. And if they live in the rural area, even though this is not significant by using 2014 wave, but if we use 2 wave, the coefficient is statistically significant. Mother education also play roles. Higher education, lower risk of stunting, and mother stature. We then categorize mother whether they short or not based on their height. If their height is less than 145 centimeters, we group them as a short mother, and the odds is more than 1 and is significant. And then we also have socioeconomic status. We use the first quintile as the base. And if we look into the coefficient here, all the higher quintile, they have lower odds, meaning that children from more advantaged family in terms of socioeconomic background, they have lower risk of stunted. This is quite consistent with the previous research. If they have access, if they don't have access to clean water, it also increase the risk of stunted. If they don't have access to sanitation and also hygiene, this also contribute to higher risk of stunted. So these are some discussion on the individual level predictors. So we able to show that between children, between household, and between sub-district differences share a considerable high of the variation in the probability of stunting in Indonesia. High unhealthy snack consumption is associated with high stunting risk. So why? Because snacks are mostly contain fat and calorie, while have lower protein and micronutrition. It's based on the previous study. And boys have high risk of being stunted. Some study shows that boys might receive premature complementary foods because, before they are ready to have a solid food at the age of 6 months, some mother, they feed the children with food before the organ are ready. So the previous study show the same result. Neonatal weight has high association of risk of stunting. So this may indicate maternal malnutrition during pregnancy. And then between children, between household, and between sub-district, I think I've mentioned that one. I go to the next point. Sorry, okay.
Putri, you have still 5 minutes. Sorry, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Vita. So suffering with acute diarrhea is associated with stunting. So diarrhea has detrimental effect on linear and ponderal growth, as this lower dietary intake escalates the metabolic demands and lessening the function of gut in absorbing the nutrition. There is also strong association between maternal stature and stunting. Mother stature is a good prediction of intragenerational undernutrition. Mother education is also a good predictor of children's stunting, as a more educated caregiver is perceived to have appropriate maternal nutritional knowledge. And then children from, this is from the regional differences. Children from poor household have higher risk to be stunted. Poor family have lack access to high quality nutritional foods and health care. And children living in rural area, they also have higher risk of being stunted, as rural area have less access to health care, as shown by Sparrow and Ponkettich in 2012, and more sensitive to food price increase, as shown by Money 2014. Lack of access to wash is also associated with stunting. Poor wash facilities increase risk of diarrhea and intestinal worm infection. Okay, that's all our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much for Putri Mulyaningsih. As I know, Putri is very concerned about stunting studies. Okay, these topics about stunting, I think it's very important topic for human development. Maybe for others participation, can took participation by asking question or some discussion. Mbak Ika, Pak Edi, do you have any question for Putri Mulyaningsih? Or maybe other participator? Not yet. Yeah. Putri, I want to ask you some question. The first question is, how do you think how bad is the spread of stunting in Indonesia based on your research?
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Vita, for your question. If we see from the proportion of young children who experience stunting, it's quite concerning because it shows that 3 out of 10 of our young children experience stunting. And why it's concerning? Because in the long term, mostly the effect in terms of the cognitive development of the children. I'm not the expert on this area, but we work together with our colleague from the Faculty of Health and also reading from some materials. The literature shows that during the development of the children during the school age, they will have problem in cognitive development. And this must has a relation with the future adulthood. The study shows that they will have lower productivity. So then by having lower productivity, it will impact, for example, the income, the earning, and the future welfare of the children. So it's concerning in my opinion, especially during the pandemic, because many family, I think they experience the parents lost their job. So then it have an impact on the ability of the family to fed properly the children. So yeah, it's quite concerning, especially now we have a kind of pandemic and crisis. Yeah. Thank you, Mbak Vita.
Yeah, I think children is a human capital in economy. And yeah, children are for long investment in our production activities. And the interesting point for your research mentioned before that gender influence stunting.
Yeah,
about the gender.
Yeah, yeah, we also quite curious about the gender. Yeah, why then gender, male, especially boys, yeah, they have lower odds. Higher odds, meaning that they have higher risk to be stunted. Then we have a look into the literature. It shows that premature feeding, yeah. Jadi before, according to the health, we can only feed our kid when they are 6 months at least, yeah. But you know, some boys, because maybe they're physically more active, the mothers perceive that, you know, it's not enough to just feed the children with breastfeed or milk. So then the mother started to, feed the kid with, food. And this has clinically has an impact on the children metabolism, organ development. So in before 6 months, the children digestive system is not ready yet for solid food. So yeah, we saw a study in Africa, that they do an experiment, and they found that boys are having higher risk to be stunted because of the premature feeding practice in the society. In the case of Indonesia, we still just rely on the literature, yeah, on how this influence, why then gender play a role in stunting risk. Thank you, Mbak Vita.
Yeah, maybe stunting start from process delivery, childbirth delivery, and mother care. Yeah, Putri.
Yeah. So all those factors play, how the mother, the family, not only the mother, take care of the children before the delivery, after the delivery, it have a significant on the children development.
Okay, maybe from other presenter.
I am one question, Bu.
Yeah, Mr. Eddie, please.
Thank you, Putri. I think this research is very interesting. I have 2 points in this your study, ECC and VPC. I think this is this new information for me. I think I missed one slide from your. How many cases stunting in IFRS 4 and IFRS 5? I think missing.
Okay, thank you, Pak Edi, for your question. I think, okay, I should be able to show you. Oh, sorry, Pak Edi. So I don't have in this slide. I don't have in this slide, but we have in paper. It's about 20, 30, almost 30%. But I think this is also one thing that I would like to ask to Pak Edi as a survey meters IFLS data. We found that the prevalence of stunting in 2014 is higher than 2007. What do you think, Pak Edi? Is it correct, or maybe we make some mistake in doing a merging or generate the data, Pak Edi?
No, because it's this your data is below 5 years, so as usually can below 2 years. So I will know how many cases for your stunting.
Okay.
I think so. Not missing in slide, berarti. I think I missing in slide.
Okay, yeah. Because I didn't show the descriptive statistic, okay. Yeah, Pak Edi. But so what was your guess? Or Pak Edi previously have calculated the prevalence of stunting?
Yeah, I think if less than 30, I think.
Okay, but because we see in the pattern, and then we do several times of data and mining and so on, we always found that 2014 stunting level is higher than 2000.
Yes.
Sorry, 2014 is higher than 2007. Is it?
I think.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Edi, for your confirmation, because that's what kept coming back to us, that why the prevalence is higher, so then the health outcome is lower in Indonesia in terms of malnutrition.
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Yeah, but Putri forgot to display the detail of data, Pak Edi.
Yeah.
Enough, Pak Edi?
Enough.
Okay, thank you very much for Putri Mulyaningsih and all the participants. We will going to the second presenter. I will invite the presenter, Sari Kristiana from National Population and Family Planning Board, with the title of Research Modern Contraceptive Use Among Urban and Rural Young Married Women in Indonesia.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Bu Sari, the time is yours.
Thank you, Bu Vita, the moderator. Allow me to share the presentation. Oh, where is it? Okay, is it clear enough?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sari Kistiana, a researcher from BKKBN. Today, I would like to share a study about modern contraceptive use among urban and rural young married women in Indonesia. So as we all know, that contraceptive use reduces the incidence of pregnancies and thus exposure to any risk of life-threatening pregnancy complication and the risk of abortion due to unwanted or unplanned pregnancies. And also contraceptive use reducing the risk of associated pregnancies that are too early, too many, too late, or too close. So in Indonesia, the use of modern contraceptive methods among married women basically stay the same from 57% in 2002 to 58% in 2017. Despite a slowly rise in contraceptive prevalence, 14% of currently married women continue to have unmet need for contraception. So if we try to have a look to young women, contraceptive use is an important aspect where early age of sexual intercourse, of course, can lead to early and risky first birth. Young women are physically immature, which increases their risk of suffering from obstetric complications and also have an increased risk of giving birth to a premature or low birth weight infant. Furthermore, there are barriers for these young women in accessing contraceptive methods, such as like lack of knowledge, cost, and fear of side effects. If we have a look at age-specific fertility rate among women age 20 to 24, there were 111 births per 1,000 women, and among young women age 15 to 19 years old were 36 births per 1,000 women. And so this study aimed to assess the urban and rural differentials of modern contraceptive use and associated factors among young married women in Indonesia. This study used secondary data of 2019 Indonesian population family planning and family development program performance and accountability survey. The statistical analysis in this study focused only on young married women age 15 to 24 years old who were not pregnant during the survey, comprising a weighted sample size of 3,927 young women. The outcome variable for this study was modern contraceptive use, which is binary in nature, user and not use. The independent variables or predictors were age, region, educational level, working status, the total number of living children. These are for children. Discuss family planning with a health worker, knowledge of contraceptive methods, family planning media exposure, household wealth index, and visited by a health worker in the past 12 months. The analysis starts with descriptive exploration of both dependent and independent variables to identify characteristics of young married women in both urban and rural area. And bivariate logistic regression was employed separately for urban and rural residents to determine the association. At the multivariate level, the relationship selected
Hello, Miss Sari.
It's connected. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm disconnected. So can I?
Yeah, show your PowerPoint, please.
Okay.
Can continue your presentation.
Okay. Let me continue. Sorry for the trouble. I guess the connection is unstable. In regard to education, there only 37.3% of rural young women fitting this criteria. I mean, in higher education. Yeah. Then by occupation, most young women are not working. By occupation, not working at the time of the survey. Regarding the number of living children, there was no significant differences between both groups. The percentage were similar, generally had 1 or 2 children. In both groups, more than 80% of young women reported want more children. So discussion about family planning with health worker was slightly higher in rural young women. Among urban young women, 37% had good knowledge of contraceptive methods, with only 30% of rural young women doing so. So young women living in a rural area seem to be more financially disadvantaged than those living in urban area. And 38% of urban and 14% of rural young women were from the household in the Rich Wealth Index. The 2/3 of young urban women had media exposure, and 61% of rural young women had exposure to any type of media. A greater share, 85% of urban and rural young women were not visited by a health worker. And this figure shows the proportion of modern contraceptive use. Modern contraceptive use was higher among rural young women, 60%, than urban, those who are living in urban area. So 3 months injections were the most popular method among both urban and rural young women, followed by oral contraceptive and 1-month injections. This is the result of logistic regression in both groups. The determinants of modern contraceptive use were actually almost the same. So if we have a look to the young women in urban areas, it is observed that women with a younger age and living in Java and Bali who had 1 or 2 children, and also had a discussion with health worker about family planning, have significantly higher odds of using modern contraception. And also in young women in rural areas, that region, number of living children, and discuss family planning with a health worker, and knowledge of contraceptive method has significantly correlated with modern contraceptive use. So these are the conclusions. The modern contraceptive use was higher among rural young women than young women reside in urban area. Among urban young married women, the odds of modern contraceptive use were higher among those who had 1 or 2 children, had discussion of family planning with a health worker, were working, were living in Java and Bali Islands, and age 15 to 19 years. Among rural young women, the odds of modern contraceptive use was higher for women with 1 or 2 children, have a good knowledge of contraceptive methods, discuss family planning with a health worker, wanted no more children, and were living in Java and Bali Island. Overall, this study has highlighted 3 key predictors of modern contraceptive use among young urban and rural women in Indonesia. Women who had 1 or 2 children, women who discuss family planning with a health worker, and women who live in Java and Bali Island. So, efforts shall be towards enhancing family planning knowledge and services for young women both in urban and rural area, particularly for those with more than 3 children and reside in other major islands than Java and Bali. Supporting and increasing scope of outreach of health workers and also field workers to deliver family planning information through discussion and counseling will not only help in increasing knowledge of contraceptive methods, but also will increase the contraceptive use. These are our reference, and question, discussion, and correction are welcome. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Ms. Sari Kristiana. Please, if you have any question or inputs from the participant. You can chat for asking Ms. Sari, maybe.
Just me, Ms. Vita. I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Ms. Sari. I think this study is very interesting. But can you come back to your data, description data? Description data. I think I have a little confusing about the classification of X. This is the correlation with your conclusion.
Okay, which one? Which characteristic?
Before. But yes, this.
Before?
Yes, no. Yes, this year. Yes. The urban for the 15 until 19 is 10%. Yes. And
for
rural,
the age?
And rural 14%.
Yeah.
And total Y is 41%. I think it is this confused. Because it's usually total is the mean of urban plus rural.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I could check it, but the total is for the total or all the young women in 15 to 24, and also reside from both urban and rural. Do you think it's not correct, Pak?
Yes, I think. Can you check? Can you see? And the other variable is region. Total is the summary. The mean and urban plus rural, and not working and working, and total is
it's too high, yeah, for the total.
Yes,
I
think.
Yeah,
yes.
I will check. Thank you for the correction.
And then to the regression, output of regression.
Yes.
And then X, yes. The reference is 15 to 19.
Yeah.
And this coefficient is 0.5 is significant. This is this to 20 and 24 more higher than reference.
No. The reference is more likely to use contraceptive.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, I know. This reference is one, yes?
Yeah, the reference
Okay.
is one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Pak
you,
Edi, for
Vita.
the correction.
You're welcome.
Can I ask Bu Vita?
Yeah, please, Putri.
Hello, Mbak Sari. Thank you for your presentation. I saw this table, so the reference is more likely to use contraception, right?
Yeah.
And this is the younger group, 15 to 19, yeah, Mbak Sari. Can you explain why this group they are more likely to use contraception than the older one? Because 15 to 19 is considered as quite young,
Very
yeah?
young.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Sari.
Yeah, actually from the result, there are two things that is interesting. First one is the rural woman is have a higher percentage on using modern contraceptive, and also this one the younger woman age 15 to 19 is more likely to use in urban area. In urban area is more likely to use contraceptive. Here's what I can think of that perhaps perhaps in urban area, the young woman is more open to information. And also the tendency now that urban area have increased knowledge of contraceptive method. So I guess they try to they realize to delay the pregnancy, I guess, by using contraceptive methods in such a younger age.
So do your sample are married or can be
all married
and
women? All married
Oh,
women.
all married women.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Putri.
Okay, maybe any question again or correction? Okay, Ms. Sari, I think your research is important because of using contraceptive related to population rate. And the characteristic of women are numerous to be analyzed. And this is very related to maternal and child health as human development in Indonesia. Any comment for others, from others? Okay, I think it's enough for Ms. Sari. Thank you very much, Ms. Sari, for your presentation.
Thank you very
And
much.
we are going to the last presenter, Ms. Ika Yulia Wijayanti, and friends Bondan Sikoki, Angki Bayu Putrantio, and Setio Pujiastuti from Surveymeter Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Vita. Long time no see. How are you? Let me introduce.
Hi.
My name is Ika Yulia Wijayanti. I am from Surveymeter. First of all, I would like to thank IRSA organizer and moderators to the opportunity for the opportunity to present my paper today. Let me share the slide first. Okay, today I would like to present our research about attitude towards sexual and reproductive health, or SRH, among adolescents in special region of Yogyakarta. I have divided my presentation into 4 parts. The first is introduction, data and methodology are in the second part. I will look at the result in the third part, and I will focus on the conclusion in the final part. Let's start the introduction by looking at this diagram about sexual and reproductive health process. According to Zakaria, writing in 2020, accurate information from proper sexual and reproductive health education will improve the level of knowledge. So the higher level is expected to encourage favorable or responsible attitude and good practice of sexual and reproductive health. And as a result, positive health outcome will be achieved. However, developing countries face some problems related to sexual and reproductive health, such as lack of knowledge, limited sexual and reproductive health education, and cultural barrier like taboo in discussing sexual and reproductive health topic that cause some negative outcomes. Here, let me show you some facts from Indonesia and Yogyakarta as part of developing countries. First, according to BKKBN, Indonesian Adolescent Reproductive Health Knowledge Composite Index in 2019 was only reached 48.5 between the range from 0 to 100. That level was quite low. If I'm not mistaken, Ibu Sari also involved in this study. The data was used in your paper, so please correct me if I'm wrong with the data. Unfortunately, we couldn't find the sexual and reproductive health education data from Education Authority in Yogyakarta, but I think this data from BKKBN again can show us that there is a limited sexual and reproductive health education in Yogyakarta. By 2019, only 29.3% of Pusat Informasi dan Kesehatan Remaja PIKR or Youth Counseling and Information Center that provide sexual and reproductive health education in Yogyakarta. On the other hand, Yogyakarta is still fighting with teenage pregnancy. In 2019, there are 440 cases of teenage pregnancy were found according to Dinas Kesehatan or DIY Health Office. So taking into this concern, this paper aims to identify factors associated with favorable attitudes towards sexual and reproductive health among adolescents in special region of Yogyakarta. Let's move to the second part, data and methodology. We use both quantitative and qualitative data in this study. Our quantitative data included 2,456 junior and senior high school students in Yogyakarta, and we analyze this data with using generalized ordered logistic model. Initially, we use ordered logistic model because our independent data has ordered response, but it turned out that proportional assumption was violated, so that we use GoLogit instead. And for qualitative data, we use it to further explore the most interesting finding for our quantitative analysis, and our qualitative data were obtained from focus group discussion or FGD and in-depth interview. All of our data were collected in 2016 by Surveymeter Independent Study. Here are the variables we use in this paper. For dependent variable, We define attitude as adolescent confidence to respond these 3 points: avoid sex without consent, refuse forced sex, and refuse premarital sex. Here we have 5 ordinal response from not confident at all, slightly confident, somewhat confident, fairly confident, and the last is, the highest is completely confident. As for the independent variable, we use some demographic characteristics such as gender, age, residence, household income, and mother education. We also include some variable represent SRH education. We use 3 variables here: discuss SRH with family, SRH education at school, and level of knowledge. We define SRH education as information about puberty, human reproduction system, contraceptive method, HIV/AIDS, sexual transmitting infection, healthy dating habits, teenage pregnancy risk, high-risk behavior, and myths related to SRH. In addition, we also add some exposure, some variable represent exposure to the media and religious activity, because Indonesian people is quite religious. So let me show you the result of our study. Here we have 3 tables for each dependent variable. First is for avoid sex intercourse without consent. Here we have 3 levels of confidence as a consequence of using generalized logistic model. So we need to recategorize the 5 initial ordinal response to 4 level, to 4 ordinal. And as you can see in this table, the female adolescents are more likely to have more confidence to avoid sex intercourse without consent than male adolescents, as well as those who have discussion as a topic with their family. On the contrary, those who access the porn content from the internet tend to have less confidence to avoid sex intercourse without consent than their counterpart. But I would like to highlight some such surprising finding in this research, that the sexual and reproductive health education from school so such inconsistent effect to the level of confidence. Even some category shows a negative effect. It means that more intense education, SRH education from school, leads to less confidence on avoiding sex intercourse without consent. And it's quite contradict the literature. And also here the knowledge level also has no consistent positive effect. The higher knowledge level, higher knowledge level has not always has a positive effect to the level of confidence. Okay, let's move to the second dependent variable, refuse for sexual intercourse. Quite similar with the first variable, with the first dependent variable. Female adolescents are more likely to have a higher confidence to refuse for sexual intercourse, and also those who discuss SRH topic with their family, and those who access porn content from the internet tend to have less tend to have less confidence in refusing for sexual intercourse. In this variable, we also find that adolescent aged 15 to 19 years were less confident to refuse for sexual intercourse than those who aged 10 to 14 years. And we also find here that the religious activity have a positive effect to the level of confidence in refusing for sexual intercourse. Once again, in knowledge level, we found that higher knowledge level doesn't always have a positive effect to the level of confidence in refusing for sexual intercourse. Next, for the last dependent variable, refuse premarital sexual intercourse. Here, the female respondent, the female adolescent also are more likely to have a higher confidence level in refusing premarital sexual intercourse, and as well as those who discuss SRH topic with their family. And again, those who access the porn content from the internet tend to have less confidence in refusing premarital sexual intercourse. Here, again, we found that religious activity has a positive effect to the level of confidence in refusing premarital sexual intercourse. And fortunately, for the knowledge level variable, the higher knowledge level has a positive effect to the level of confidence in refusing premarital sexual intercourse. But here, we also find that SRH education from school has not always have a consistent effect. It is the significant one is positive effect when they get SRH education from school twice per month, but the more intense have no significant effect. Some even shows negative sign. Okay, we conclude the quantitative finding into 2 points. First is high level of sexual and reproductive health knowledge has no consistent positive effect to favorable attitude, and more intense SRH education from school has no consistent effect to favorable attitudes, even indicates negative effect on adolescent confidence to avoid sexual intercourse without consent. And to further explore the finding, the surprising finding, we also confirmed it with our qualitative data. And here, as you can see, we have 6 statements for our respondent. It comes from a teacher, student, government institution, and NGO. From this 6 statement, we can see that there is a lack of knowledge. The cultural barrier still exists, and also they have no curriculum for the SRH education, and something like that. So we summarize it into 4 findings from our qualitative data. First is students have lack of knowledge and need to clear information related to SRH. And the teacher, meanwhile, the teacher are confused how to deliver accurate SRH information so that it causes ineffective process in SRH education, and the result is not quite good. The cultural barriers still exist from the member of community, even from a leader of community like ulama. And the last one is SRH education and curriculum are restricted by this misperception in the society. Okay, this finding leads us to the conclusion. We have 4 conclusions here. SRH education at school has no significant positive effect to favorable attitudes. And misperception become a barrier in providing SRH information, so that the promoting urgency of SRH disseminate the need of SRH information is essential to the entire society. And the third conclusion is the need for comprehensive SRH curriculum, not only to reduce unwanted pregnancy, but also to encourage good attitude and practice. And yeah, it is a long way to have the curriculum, and it needs collaboration between the stakeholder. Maybe we can start at from the collaboration among the government institution. Then if they have a draft, maybe they can disseminate it with the society, especially particularly the community leader or the NGO which concern to this issue. Okay, this conclusion will bring us to the end of my presentation. Here are some references I used in this slide. Thank you for listening. If there are any comment or question, please, I will do my best to respond and answer it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Ika. I think your research is very interesting because it is very related to our surroundings. And the point is the object of your research were junior and senior high school.
Right, yes.
Okay, and surprisingly, education sexual from school not significant and negative.
Yeah, tend to have a negative effect for the adolescent confidence.
Okay, let's discuss about the research from this is question from Putri Mulyaningsih. Thanks for the presentation. I may miss your slide. Please explain again your control variables to capture the individual as well as peers and family characteristics. Or maybe Putri can ask directly.
It's okay. I can.
Oh yeah.
I can understand it. I'll try to share my slide again. Oops, sorry. Okay, maybe for clearer, for more clear variable, we can see in the table. I use household income, Putri, and mother education as a control variable related to the family and a family characteristic, but it turned out that these variables are not significant. They affect the level of confidence. And for the individual characteristic, I use sex, age, and resident. Oh, sorry, resident, maybe it's related to the family characteristic. Any comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Ika. I think this is very interesting study, but you know, if you found a kind of non-mainstream finding, yeah, something that you encounter in your study, then it's a bit tricky to explain. My comment was that in terms of sexual relations, as this study tried to cover, this behavior is pretty much influenced by peers who they play with, who they hang out with, and how is the family, attitude, the values, and example by the family. So I think if you able to collect more information on peer and how the family relationship, it will be interesting, yeah, to then control for all the characteristics that might influence the young adult sexual behavior. Because in this study, you control for socioeconomic status and the gender and mother's education. However, there are so much more factors, I believe so, that might influence the dependent variables, yeah, such as the peers, and then how the family. So yeah, maybe that's just for future research. Yeah, if you can collect more information to control for the individual, it will be more robust to then conclude that sexual education is not effective, yeah, in this case. Yeah, thank you, Mbak Ika.
Thank you so much, Putri, for your input. I will try to explore more and improve my paper with based on your suggestion. Thank you. Maybe any other question or comment or correction?
From Pak Edi or Miss Sari?
Yeah, can I add something, Bu Ika? Thank you, Bu Vita. First of all, interesting presentation, and thank you for utilizing the SCAP, ya. SCAP remaja, ya. SCAP remaja. Well, actually in that report, there is a value for the index in Yogyakarta. It is 55%, I think.
Okay, that it means Yogyakarta have a higher index than the national.
Yes, I guess so. Beside this result of the analysis, yeah, because you say that SRH education at school is not really have an impact. So what do you think about our program, Mbak Ika, the PIK Remaja?
Okay.
There was a peer group one, but it is located in the school or in the university, but some is in the society. But what do you think about the program from BKKBN? Is it like help to continue for increasing SRH knowledge in teenagers? What do you think about it?
Okay. When we interviewed counseling teacher or a BK teacher, they acknowledge that PIK-R has significant role in disseminating information about SRH. And this, but unfortunately, this program has not reached all schools in the IE, Busari. Even some teacher from our respondent did know about this program. So maybe you can, your institution can expand it and improve the program to all school in Yogyakarta. Maybe it will result. It will give more good result. Thank you. Any other comment?
Pak Edi or others participant maybe still have a question for Bu Ika.
Enough, Svita, from me.
Yeah.
It's enough from me.
Oh.
It's enough, Bu Vita.
Okay. The event will be closed in 15 minutes. Thank you for reminder, Mbak Ratri. And thank you very much for Miss Ika from the presentation.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it takes participation and responsibility from all parties to control adolescent behavior. Okay, hello, test. Okay, I think it's enough for this session. Thank you very much to all participants. Hopefully, we will meet again in the next IRSA, and hopefully all of you in the good health during this difficult time. Thank you very much for all. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.